So hello and welcome to webinar 19. The aim and purpose of these webinars, these Monday masterclasses, even if they don't happen on a Monday, is to go from goal setting to goal getting. Started with New Year's resolutions in mind to inspire more self-health responsibility and more self-peace, because I believe the more at peace we are as individuals, the more likely we are to actually bring about some kind of world peace. So, can I now get to the next screen? It would appear not. Oh, we've now gone blank. This is not good. Nope, so that goes black. Ah, here you go. That's the right button. So webinar 19, stress, outthink it, rethink it, and use it. What I'm going to What I'm going to cover is a swift recap on some previous related webinars. Talk a little bit about stress, anxiety, depression. I'm going to talk about resilience, mention grit, then something better. And then we're going to talk about lemonade and the upside of stress, although we're actually going to talk about that pretty close to the beginning, and 16 years younger in 5 minutes. So here we go. So webinar 18. So this is what I did a couple of weeks ago. Was it even last week? No, because it was a bank holiday last week. So 2 weeks ago. Routines and habits of excellence. Up to 90% of our everyday behavior is based on habit. So that means if you are permanently feeling stressed, you can put a large chunk of money on the bet that probably to do with your habits. If you're continually feeling stressed, your habits and routines, and you can change your stress by changing your habits and routines. So go and watch webinar 18. And we're going to talk more about what you can do to change those habits and routines and change stress today. Some habits and routines you can actually get into. And so webinar 18 was learning the mental skills needed to overcome the mental barriers that tip you up to perform at the highest level, even when it's hard. And week 14, we spoke about Stress Awareness Month, which was all last month, and the elite mindset. So building a mindset to actually help you feel on top of the world, 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And help me with that, I talk about mental performance mastery, and elite mindset is the very first pillar. And so I'm an MPM certified coach. So we talk about motivation and commitment, focus and awareness, self-control and discipline, process over outcome, meditation and mental imagery, routines and habits of excellence, which we covered last time management and organizational leadership, and the right culture. All of these things will help massively decrease stress in yourself, and if you run a business, in your business when you implement all these tools. In week 7, spoke about, or webinar 7 as I will now call it, heart stress. And in that I asked which of these is you, or sounds more like you. Experiencing stress deplete your health. This is what you think about stress. Experiencing stress depletes my health. Experiencing stress debilitates my performance and productivity. Experiencing stress inhibits my learning and growth. The effects of stress are negative and should be avoided. Or is this you, or is this you sometimes? Experiencing stress enhances my performance and productivity. Experiencing stress improves my health and vitality. Experiencing stress facilitates my learning and growth. And the effects of stress are positive and should be utilized. Now, there are probably circumstances, most people probably generally think of stress like this, bad. There are, when you look at it and when you think about it, there are probably circumstances where you actually feel more like this, where you feel that it's positive, such as when you go to the gym. What's the stress that causes muscles to get bigger and stronger? By actually stressing them. How do you get your cardiovascular fitness up? By stressing it. And it's the same with all the other forms of stress in life. The only way that you can actually really grow in some area is to provide some kind of stress. So, The Upside of Stress by Kelly McGonigal. there is actually a TED talk, so you can actually just go onto YouTube and put in Upside of Stress and Kelly McGonigal, and there's a you'll see a talk by her. This is why stress is good for you and how to get good at making stress good for you. So this is all from the book, and this is from the webinar 7, Heart Stress. So as we begin the journey together, I offer this conception of stress. Stress is what arises when something you care about is at stake. And that's key. You know what you're doing if you're caring about something because you're stressing about it. This definition is big enough to hold both the frustration over traffic, because you're stressed in traffic because you want to get somewhere, and the grief over loss. It includes your thoughts, emotions, and physical reactions when you're feeling stressed, as well as how you choose to cope, there you go, with situations you describe as stressful. This definition also highlights an important truth about stress. Stress and meaning are inextricably linked. You don't stress about things you don't care about, and you can't create a meaningful life without experiencing some stress. So again, I'll say that again. Stress is what arises when something you care about is at stake. And you don't stress about things you don't care about, and you can't create a meaningful life without experiencing some stress. The latest science reveals that stress can make you smarter, stronger, and more successful. It helps you learn and grow. It can even inspire courage and compassion. The new science also shows that changing your mind about stress can make you healthier and happier. Just changing your mind can make you healthier and happier. We've covered that before. How you think about stress affects everything from your cardiovascular health to your ability to find meaning in life. The best way to manage stress isn't to reduce or avoid it, but rather to rethink it and even embrace it. So I hope you remember that from week 7. I spoke about a number of things, including the HeartMath Institute Depletion to Renewal Plan, which talks about how, for instance, at the top here, anxiety and anger are very states of high energy, just like happiness and excitement. So if you're feeling anxious or anger, try and think that they are actually close to happiness and excitement. So what are you excited about? When you're angry, when you're anxious, what are you getting excited about? And you can slightly change from being a cortisol stressed negative side to a DHEA positive side. Whereas sadness and apathy, depression are more low levels of energy. So that's also similar to contentment and serenity, strangely enough. So you can, when you do the right things, just slightly trick your nervous system into producing a slightly different hormone. And this is what many of the HeartMath Institute tools are about. So if you want to learn more about that, reach out. We can get on a coaching program. Then back to the upside of stress. Kelly talks about the challenge response. Like a fight or flight response, a challenge response gives you energy and helps you perform under pressure. Your heart rate still increases, your adrenaline spikes, your muscles and brain get more fuel, and the feel-good chemicals surge. But it differs from a fight or flight response in a few important ways. You feel focused, not fearful. You also release a different ratio of stress hormones, including high levels of DHEA, which we just mentioned, which helps you recover and learn from stress. This raises the growth index of your stress response, the beneficial ratio of stress hormones that can determine in part whether a stressful experience is strengthening or harmful. So how you frame and think about stress and situations, which comes from, yes, if you plan everything correctly, if you use a goal setting process called WHOOP, which I have mentioned before, and I'll probably do another webinar about it at some point. But learning how to reframe and rethink about stress is very important as to then what chemicals you produce and how you learn from it. And then Kelly tells us that the science tells us that stress is most likely to be harmful when 3 things are true. 1, you feel inadequate to it. And so that's one of the things we cover about in webinar 14. We help improve your own mindset so that you are more likely to rise to the challenge rather than feel overwhelmed. stress is bad when it isolates you from others. Again, we spoke about that in webinar 1, and how isolation can again change on how you think about it. Some people are actually much better as lone wolves, as it were, because they have a deeper meaning in what they're doing, which brings us to number 3. It feels utterly meaningless and against your will. And again, in webinar 1, we covered a lot on meaning and how to seek meaning and find meaning in the moment. So as we've seen, how you think about stress feeds into each one of these factors, but also if you can build your mental resilience, build your mindset, learn how to think differently about isolation and meaning, you will automatically decrease the stress you're under. So this was from webinar 1, the meaning of life, 3 domains. There's the cognitive sense of coherence, which I matter and you mean something, motivation, what you do actually matters, and then effective engagement in life. Life matters. How do you actually interact with others? So there are different levels of meaning, and you can get meaning from each level, and you can give stuff meaning even when you don't think it has meaning. Again, go back to the webinar. And again, this is one of the quotes that I used from Mother Teresa. The greatest disease in the West today is not TB or leprosy, COVID. It's being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for. We can cure physical disease with this medicine, to a point. But the only cure for loneliness, despair, and hopelessness is love. There are many in the world who are dying for a piece of bread, but there are many more dying for a little love. This is, again, one of the things that I think is so important. We realize about health, it's not just about pills and potions, it's not just about eating healthy, it's not just about exercising, it's about having greater awareness of what's happening in the world and what we as individuals can do to help the world by helping ourselves. It goes both ways. So, building your ability to cope with stress is resilience, and hormesis basically refers to the science of whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Hormesis refers to adaptive responses of biological systems to moderate environmental or self-imposed challenges through which the system improves its functionality and or tolerance to more severe challenges. Again, challenges is a better word than stress. And so hormesis builds your resilience, builds your ability to cope with any stress, okay? And so basically how stress makes us stronger, physically, mentally, and chemically. So there are forms of hormesis like exercise. People who exercise actually blow off their stress hormones anyway, but they also, when they exercise and push themselves to tougher limits, make themselves more resilient to stress. Saunas, heat stress. Again, it helps you cope with more stress and feel less stressed in real life. Cold showers, something anyone can do quite easily. Again, cold exposure, when it's controlled, helps you feel more resilient to stress. It also improves your immune system. Breath holding, again, very easy to do. There's the Wim Hof method. There's other things as well. And there's certain herbs and spices, which is the chemical side. Things like turmeric can be so good for us because they actually change our own body systems, actually slightly stress our bodies in order to make them stronger. So there's all kinds of ways that you can make yourself stronger. And as you make yourself stronger in one area, it makes you more resilient in other areas. So a cold shower can actually make you more resilient to emotional and mental stress. Improving mental and emotional tolerance can make you actually tolerate more exercise. Heat can make you tolerate more exercise, more mental, emotional stress. And so can also the right herbs and spices also help as well. And there's a whole range of different things you can do for hormesis, should you so desire. One of the best places to learn more about that is the Energy Blueprint by Ari Whitten, or to go on one of my courses. Now, this brings us to a guy called Tom Morris, who I'm fortunate enough to be a friend with now on Facebook. Tom Morris has a joint PhD from Yale, and he was one of the most popular professors at Notre Dame. And I haven't put this down here. At one point, he was the official Disney spokesman for Winnie the Pooh. Some of you may have read The Tao of Boo and the Tea of Piglet, some great books on philosophy based on the sayings of Winnie the Pooh. But Tom Morris is a real philosopher, and he actually really was a spokesman for Winnie the Pooh. But He's done loads and loads and loads of things, and one of his books is Plato's Lemonade Stand. And yeah, this is from the book. This book will offer a practical philosophy for how to flex and innovate your way forward in the face of life's irritations, shocks, defeats, disappointments, heartaches, and failures. The good news is that we've long had some profound advice on how to deal with the vast range of difficulties we face. It's as succinct as it is vivid and memorable. When life hands you lemons, make lemonade. And it goes on. In the face of a real tragedy, you may think it to be ridiculously trite or even glib, but it's not at all. Beneath the simple surface image of the advice, there are great depths to be explored and powerful insights to be used. It actually captures a profound philosophy of life. And yet, there's a basic problem with the popular adage. Nearly everyone says it, but no one says how. Nobody tells us exactly or even remotely how to do what's so vividly recommended. This book will solve the problem, providing guidance from some of the wisest people who have ever lived. So what does this mean? It means that people can say, when life gives you lemons, give you lemonade, but how do you actually turn something sour into something sweet? Well, this is where the book is really helpful. And so grit and resilience is about grit and resilience in the book. I agree that both resilience and grit are indeed vital characteristics needed for any challenging success in our time, as they have been in every era. But the old adage about lemonade is particularly interesting because it hints at something more. We're not told that when life hands us lemons, we should just bounce back emotionally and regain our poise, or that we should perhaps instead grit our teeth and persist in soldiering on despite the sour fruit. It makes a rather radical suggestion that we should do something that involves a transformation, and one that results in much more than the simply tolerable. It doesn't just help us put pain into the past, it urges us to use our difficulty to create an outcome that's even delightful. And so this is a new concept beyond resilience and grit and hormesis. This is actually taking stress and basically turning it into something amazing and basically making it use stress as fuel. And I first came across Tom Morris and Plato's Lemonade Stand on the heroic.us app, and that's Brian Johnson, and these are Brian Johnson's words on his notes on this book. Resilience, grit, bouncing back when we get knocked down. These are obviously wonderful qualities, yet they're not quite enough. We need a word of the opposite of fragile. It's not resilient, it's anti-fragile. As we've discussed countless times, when we're fragile, we break. When we're resilient, we can sustain more challenges before breaking and then bouncing back. But what if you could actually get stronger every time life kicks us around? We'd be anti-fragile. When life gives us lemons, we'd make lemonade. And this is what so many of the world's, most resilient leaders do. They just keep on bouncing back and getting stronger and bigger and better because they are anti-fragile. They don't break and shatter, they break and get stronger. And so this is why forging an anti-fragile confidence is objective 2 in the Heroic Protocol. And so yes, you can join Heroic, you can join to actually go through the coaching program with Heroic, or you can have someone such as myself take you through it and build you a more personalized plan or program. There are many benefits to just using the free version of the Heroic app, as I've mentioned before, and I'll make sure I put a link in the comments to get. I think you can get it for free, but you can also get 20% off the paid version as well. But even just using the free version for 30 days, you can expect more energy, more productivity, more connection, and less stress. So let's bring us to some big issues. here that being but forging anti-fragility can help us beat. Nearly 1 billion people, including 40% of the world's 14% of the world's adolescents, are living with a mental disorder. Anxiety and depression increased by 25% in the first year of COVID. So that brings us back to that whole isolation, and where people felt a lot of meaninglessness was at. And so it's not about more drugs. It's about changing how we ourselves adapt to things. And this is something that is missing massively from the health services of the world. So this is all US figures. This is actually taken from a talk on mental health that a colleague of mine in America prepared. So yeah, mental health costs costs a lot of money, whether in the US or whether you're in the UK or anywhere else. Depression is the #1 cause of disability in the Western world. Mental disorders account for 13% of the global disease burden, or mental disorders. So what can you do to actually instantly feel better if you are depressed, if you're anxious? Well, after you've watched some of my webinars already, you'll know that the right kind of breathing can have an incredible effect, because it's about changing your state. It's hard to feel depressed when you're looking at yourself in the mirror and smiling. Even a fake smile can actually change how you're doing things. It's hard to feel depressed and down if you actually sit up straight and start jumping around and listening to good music. It's about changing your state. And there are very simple ways to do it, but practicing changing your state is something that you want to do every day, so that when you need it, it's easy to do. It's a skill, just like playing tennis. You can't basically one day appear on centre court at Wimbledon and expect to beat who's against you. You've got to put in the practice. So practicing on a daily basis, this is where having routines and habits of excellence are fantastic, because you're training for the hard times. But check this out. Okay, the nervous system. There are 11 trillion, billion, quadrillion. There's lots and lots and lots of nerves and nerve connections in the body. Okay, but the one that we're most interested in is something called the autonomic nervous system, which is the one that basically controls everything that we don't have to think about. So our organ system, endocrine system, digestion, breathing, all these sorts of things. And this can be measured, okay, by something called heart rate variability. And it's something that I use with my clients in the clinic. And so this is actually my heart rate variability. It's going up and down really smoothly, up and down in a sine wave, and lots of 100% and very good. And heart rate variability is, it's linked to, well, if you've got poor HRV, it's linked to depression, all sorts of uses perhaps in psychiatry, although not everyone with poor HRV has problems that are obvious, and not everyone with these problems has poor HRV, but it's something that can be measured and improved that will help. So all kinds of things linked in some ways to poor HRV, but here's something you may not be aware of. Now, I think I was lucky enough to actually hear this guy, Herman Schwartz, talk at the Anglo-European College of Chiropractic when I was actually there. And he had found that there used to be some chiropractic mental asylums, which we, of course, don't get taught about at chiropractic college these days at all. And delving into the history of them, and here's some of them, or might be one of them actually, showed all kinds of amazing things happening to people with stuff like schizophrenia, insanity, have all kinds of health problems, depression, anxiety, by basically giving them clean living and regular chiropractic adjustments, like 6 times a day. But they basically fed them well, they got them interacting and playing sports, they gave them good dentistry, they basically just made them healthy. And when you made them healthy, their brains got healthier. But one of the main things they did was take care of this joint at the top of the neck. 6 times a day, they ensured that this was moving, because not only is the spinal cord in here, there's the arteries that go into the brain as well. So it's important to keep it moving, and they did it in a very specific way that was very, 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 very safe. And so yeah, this is a term I don't actually like. Just pretend you're not seeing that word. I don't like the phrase subluxation. It's very old-fashioned, and yeah, it's poor. Yeah. Anyway, basically, the spine, it doesn't have to be out of place. Like this is again an out of concept. It's an out-of-date concept. Basically, if the spine isn't moving properly, it can cause problems with your nervous system, and it depends on where the spine isn't moving as to what might not be happening. But here is a picture of someone's heart rate variability when they came in. So they actually had a number of adjustments with me. They were getting better with their back pain, but this is their heart rate variability. As you can see, it goes up and down a little bit, but it doesn't look like mine. These numbers, you know, they're all under 50% apart from this one here. But this is what it was like after an adjustment. So this is literally 5 minutes later. Much more up and down and wavy. Okay, although it did start wearing off at the end, but the overall percentage much higher, 93%. And the heart stress index, so this is how stressed the heart was according to the heart rate variability. It was in the stress region because it was above 100, but after the adjustment, not stressed. Then the amount of balance in energy output, don't know quite how it's measured, but basically it went from not having very good energy resources to having loads of good resources, and went from being not fat burning to fat burning. But the main thing is this, the device I use actually measures you against people of your age. So this lady was 51, and at the time before the adjustment, she had the biological age of a 48-year-old, HRV wise. But after the adjustment, she was 32. So she got 16 years younger in just 5 minutes. And literally, the right kind of adjustments done at the right time in the right way will dramatically reduce the amount of stress your nervous system is under and help you feel a whole lot better. And it's not just me that's saying this. There are a number of there's a number of tests that have been done around the world. They're a very limited scale at the moment, but they do show that there is a link between the spine, the brain, the nervous system, and that when you actually adjust the spine, it has effects on the brain, and usually, hopefully beneficial. It gets things working better in different ways, improves blood flow, for instance. So what causes spinal dysfunction, which is my preferred term? Well, all kinds of different stress, physical stress. So if you've been, hit by a car, or if you've fallen over, or if you just sit all day, or if you sit slumped in your sofa at the end of the day watching TV. Chemical stresses. Are you eating properly? Because if you're not eating properly, then it can cause your spine to be a problem, because some people notice when they don't eat properly, they have back pain. And of course, mental stress as well. How common is this? Well, a guy in Germany examined 1,000 infants and found problems with 80% of them. And they basically found that when you worked on these children, all kinds of things improved. So yeah, it's very common. There's all kinds of things that basically show that many people have spinal issues, even if they don't have pain, and that when you look after them, all kinds of things can improve. Now, this is not the same as saying that everybody is going to feel the benefits of spinal care, but a lot of people may be surprised at how good they feel when their spine is moving and when it's kept moving on a regular basis. As I say, and I've always mentioned this quote, it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society, which is pretty much what we are at the moment. We need to make some changes. And it's up to you to decide to get healthier. It's not up to the government. It's not up to the NHS. It's not up to the pharmaceutical companies. It's up to you to decide how you live your life, and whether you do something on a daily basis to make yourself healthier, or whether you do something on a daily basis to make yourself sicker and closer to taking more drugs. It's up to you to decide whether or not you want to actually adopt the Magnificent 7 health strategies of think right, talk right, drink right, eat right, move right, detox right, and sleep right to help protect your brain, body, and bowel, so you become a truly healthy individual. It's up to you to implement the fantastic functional 3 of functional movement, functional nutrition, and functional thought, or as I prefer, functional philosophy in your daily life. And you can do that with Heroic Protocol. You can do it with the mental performance mastery. And you don't stress about things you don't care about, and you can't create a meaningful life without experiencing some stress. So start rethinking your stress, and who knows what your life may be like. If you'd like more help, reach out either through beatbloodpressure.com or bodyimbalanceuk.com, or reply to the emails, or find me on Facebook, on TikTok now as well, and Instagram and LinkedIn. Next, it's National Healthy Eating Week here in the UK. So I'm going to be talking about healthy eating with aspects of your body, your brain, your back as well, probably your bowel, immune system, blood pressure, and perhaps. So I hope you found that really useful today. Be well, be funky, be happy, be healthy, and bye for now.